Hello and welcome to my studio. I'm Josee and this is the Knit Up and Dye podcast, episode 81, Gone Wrong. Special thanks as always go out to all of my subscribers, new and ongoing. I love you guys. What you see here is all about you. If you have questions, if you have things that you'd like to see demonstrated, please write to me and I'll do my best to incorporate it in future episodes. As always, I start with my thank you list. Special love and thanks go out to Faye, Julie, Janelle, Erica, Adriana, Sonia, Wayne, Patricia, Lisalette, Cappy, Kath, Benty, Christy, Neetsy, Charlotte, Chris, Roseanne, Linda, Marie, Eve, David, Donna, Betty Ann, Scott and John, Carolyn, Kate, Terry, Monica, Bex, Nancy, and Rachel. Much love goes out to my Zoom family, Robert, Roz, Paula, Brian, Jen, Elizabeth, Nicole M, Nicole B, Katie, Shirley, Tracy, George, Ann, and Eve. Love you guys. A warm hello and thank you goes out to all of my patrons. You honor me. I couldn't do this without you and I appreciate everything you do for me. So, Gone Wrong. Why did I name this episode Gone Wrong? I was reminded of some things this past week. This past weekend, after I podcast, I had some dyeing that I wanted to do, that I needed to do. And I set up in my kitchen, and I was actually on live with the Zoom setup, and dyeing along with some friends, chatting with some friends, and I wasn't feeling it. Sometimes you just don't have your mojo in place. And I was kind of plodding along, trying to get through the ones that I had to do. I had a couple custom orders I needed to get done. And those recipes were in place. I had those, I knew what to do, boom, 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 done. And then I had one project that I wanted to do. I wanted to get ahead on dyeing for my Patreons for the next month, because I'm going to be on the road and I'm going to lose some time there. And I wanted to be sure that I had everything ready in advance. And for my Patreon club, I make sure that I create a new and unique colorway as much as possible, not replicating anything, each month. And so I try to be really creative and really step out of my box and find out what I can do. And I sort of had a vision, and I might have been being a little bit too exact. And that's important to understand when you're dyeing, that if you have a really sharp idea in mind, you're likely to miss the mark. Dyeing is kind of a wishy-washy affair in that different things will happen. If the temperature is different, if you use slightly different acid, you use slightly different dyes, there's a million other little factors in place, including your attitude. And when I did this, I think I was aiming a little bit too tightly. And I didn't have a great attitude. As I told you last week, I had been in a very minor car accident. And that actually affected me a little bit more than I expected it. There was some emotional repercussions attached to that. I'm better now. But at the time, I was still not all the way through processing. And so here I was in the kitchen, and I'm trying to dye this, and I have this overly exact idea, and I'm not giving myself the freedom of dyeing, that things change. And I put the stuff in the pot, and my initial reaction when it came out was, yuck. I don't like it. I'm not happy with it, and it's gone wrong. And I kept pushing. Instead of stopping and saying, okay, it didn't work the way I wanted it to, let's reapproach the pots later. Or, okay, do I like it anyway? Am I just going to continue with this? I kept pushing. I did another batch with the same recipe. And I got the same results. And again, I looked at it and I thought, ugh, this isn't what I wanted. It's the same as the first time. I thought I would get different results. I don't like it. I'm not happy. Wah, 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 wah. And I just sunk into this frustrated place where I'm a dyer and why can't I achieve what I want? And this isn't coming out the way I want it to. And all that stuff that we beat ourselves up with when we think that we are failing, instead of giving ourselves the grace that we need to recognize that this is art, that your emotional state when you view art affects how you see art, and giving yourself grace to fail. Fail slowly so that you learn from your failure. Don't fail fast and shove it away and not learn from it. Fail slowly and learn from it. And I did none of these things. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know how to be a progressive, positive human being and gain from my life experience. Do I do it? Hell no. This is life, and we learn lessons and we repeat those same lessons until we actually learn them. So here I was, live in a room of other people that it's a community. It's kind of a knit night sort of a thing, and these people are wonderful, supportive people, and here I am not feeling my best, and my supportive, wonderful friend said, Jess, put it away. Go sit down and knit for a little while and soothe your soul here. And said, it's great to hear you say that it's wrong and that you failed. It's good to hear a professional dyer have something go wrong. And I did. I listened to my friends. Thank you guys. You're everything. And I packed up all my pots and I walked away from the kitchen and I went and I sat down. But of course, could I just sit and knit? No, that would have made sense. I started to work on my design. And so I sat down with my design and I started to knit on it, headed in the direction I thought I wanted to go in. And I did math, and the math was a little wonky and I wasn't feeling it. And I knit some more. I didn't stop when it went wrong. When it goes wrong, stop, step back, breathe. Nope, didn't do that. Kept plodding on, knit another couple inches on this project, and looked at it and realized this isn't the direction I wanted to go in. I don't like it. I'm not happy. Pull back. And I did. I pulled back. So last Sunday, when I'm sorry, it was Monday. It was Monday. It was the holiday. I was home from work. It didn't go as expected. Nothing in that day went as expected. And so I gave up on my knitting. I set my knitting aside and I said, you know what? I'm gonna go bake cookies. This is a safe activity. I can do this. And I called my mom and I got my Bluetooth on and I am putting ingredients in the bowl, and I've got my coconut oil and I got my coconut sugar, and I'm setting it to whip, because if you whip it really, really good and you give it a real good emulsion, those cookies are all chewy and wonderful. And never mind gluten. You don't need gluten. These are wonderful. And I put the oil and the sugar in, and I'm looking in the bowl talking to my mother, and all of a sudden I realize this looks a lot greasier than it's supposed to. I was so far in my funk that I had actually swapped the coconut oil for the coconut sugar in my recipe, and I had the wrong proportions. My options were bin the whole thing, or do the math to figure out how to double or triple the recipe in order to make those the right quantities and bear it out. And so I ended up making a triple batch of chocolate chip cookies, which was good because at that point my soul needed some healing, and I pretty well had cookies for dinner, and my husband was really happy at a triple batch of cookies, and I was pretty happy to sit there and eat them right beside him and get over my funk. But I learned a lot of great things in this, and that was forgiveness of self, and that just because you think it's gone wrong doesn't mean it has. If you stop and you step back and you breathe and you give it base. And then return to it with new eyes. New eyes. It's going to look different. It's going to feel different. It's going to make different sense to you. The yarn that I made is gorgeous. I'm really excited about it, and I'm going to give you guys a sneak peek because we are going to miss an episode, I think, as I'm going to be out of town at my trunk show. I'm so excited about that. But for Patreon in October, the colorway is Rain on My Window, and it is this beautiful soft gray with green and blue undertones. It is exactly what you would see in the middle of the day during a rain shower if you're looking through a window that has raindrops all over it and you're looking out onto a green expanse. It has all the little bits and bobs of a gray rainy day with a green view beyond your window. And I love it. When I looked at it at that time, I just thought, yuck. And that's because my emotional state at that time was yuck. And now that my head is healthier and I look at it and I see the romance of what I was aiming for, that quiet afternoon where the drops are just rolling down the glass and you're looking out at the green lawn and the green trees and your world is in that strange kaleidoscope that you get looking through raindrops on glass. I got that. But I was on the wrong side of the glass when I did it. I'm very excited about this colorway. I think it's gorgeous. I have some more dyeing to do because I did stop and step away and not damage any more yarn. As for the pattern that I worked on, that I ended up pulling back on, that too is better. Sometimes you have to knit in a design, in a sample, in a swatch. You have to progress in order to see where you want to edit. And that knitting that I did showed me where I wanted to edit. And had I actually been in a really positive mood when I did it, I might not have recognized the edits and may have progressed even further before I determined what edits I needed to make and would have had to rip back even further. I'm grateful for it. I learned from it. I got a good thing out of it. It's coming along. And the cookies, well, they're cookies. You get extra cookies, you get extra cookies. How does that go wrong? So in the end, it was all okay. But when things went wrong, it was because I had gone wrong and I didn't recognize that in myself. And learning to forgive and learning to adapt is a lesson I've learned repeatedly, and sooner or later it's going to write to the hard drive and we're going to get this. We're going to get this. Moving on. I made some progress this week with my knitting. I worked on that design, which I'm referring to as coffee bar, and 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We're not even going to look at it right now. That needs a couple more steps forward before I talk about that more. But I did work on my acrylic socks, which I'm calling my no wool socks, and I made progress. I got a sock done. My first sock is done. They look so funny because the leg is ribbed and that ribbing just sucks right in, so it looks like I have itty bitty tiny ankles and these big feet. I like it. The hand is nice. I'm happy with it. I did go a little bit shorter on the leg on this particular one just because I need some socks in that length. I might have gone a little bit too long in the foot. I haven't decided yet. I knit this. It's really a very vanilla sock. I knit it toe up. It's stockinette only except for the leg, which is ribbed, just because I'm not sure about the elasticity of working with the acrylic yarn. I'm used to the elasticity of wool. I felt like this was a little bit less elastic, and so I used ribbing to make up for that. that having been said, I knit it at 60 stitches, whereas normally I knit my socks at 64. And I'm realizing that my gauge has changed up a little bit over time since I started knitting socks. And so stepping down my stitch count allows me to use the same needle, because I have 5,000 pairs of US size 2, but enables me to get the same size. So I have stepped down to a 60 count, and it's a little bit snugger. There's a little bit more negative ease around the width of the foot, and because you've got more negative ease, which means this stretches further, the length is going to shorten slightly. Did you see when I did that, how the toe came down? Knitting grows and shrinks. And if it shrinks this way, it's because it's growing this way. And if it's shrinking this way, it's because it's growing this way. And so because I actively shrank this and made this tighter, the length shortens slightly to adapt, to accept that stretch. And so I knit them at actual length. Here, this is the actual length of my foot. But when I wear them, I think it'll pull in and fit slightly that negative ease to the length, so that it won't be sloppy in my shoe. I have tried them on. I haven't worn them in shoes, obviously, because I only have one, and limping around with one doesn't give you a really good idea of wear. So I'm going to knit the second sock, and we'll see how that goes. I think the yarn is pretty. I think the colors are vibrant and fun. I like the hand of it. This is not Red Heart. This does not feel like Red Heart. This is Premier Wool. I think that's the name of the company. Let me double check. Sorry, Premier Yarns. I did get this at Joann.com, and it comes in 50-gram skeins. I refer to this yarn as being bulimic. I took my leftover yarn and decided that I would try and ball it up. It's a big knot. I'm just not having any success with that yet. I will get this all sorted out. I've got bits and bobs falling everywhere. It's been bulimic, and I am fighting with it a little bit, but we'll get this all sorted out, neatened up, and we'll go from there. That'll help me weigh it and figure out the yardage, what was used, what was not was used, and what kind of overage comes out. That's an interesting thing. My skeins of yarn will say that they're 100 grams and X number of yards. Inevitably, and this is because of my supplier is a wonderful supplier, there's usually 101, 102, there's usually a couple extra grams in there. So you actually get even more yardage than what's on the label. And that's really nice. However, not every brand does that. So I'm curious to see if this brand is spot on or if there is a little bit of extra yardage. Some brands wish and wash in the other direction, and although it says it's 100 grams, you may actually only get 98. If you question it, weigh your skeins and that'll tell you what's going on. But what's labeled for yardage against grams is their mean number. So if you have 102, it's not 102 at the same yardage, it's 102 plus that yardage. Does that make any sense? I hope that makes sense. Anywho, I have one sock, I made progress, and I have another sock to go. I haven't decided yet to cast that on. My focus is kind of shifting as I prepare for my trunk show and what I'll be taking for travel knitting, and my whole week this week is focused on trying to get ahead in my real life job so that I don't stress about that while I'm gone. I know, that second brain in the back of your head, that little gremlin that sits on your shoulder that goes, you didn't get everything done, you're gonna have a load of work when you get back. I just wanna make sure he's gone. Also this week, finally, I got back to work on my Memoir sweater. I don't know why I put this down. I had a little bit of stress going on about the sleeves, and part of it was I was afraid I wasn't going to have enough yardage. I don't know why I do that to myself. I always have enough yardage. Part of it was I had so many other things going on. I was working on the farmhouse, I was working on barn dance, just prepping for other stuff that this kind of got set by the wayside. And so this past week I was able to sit down and work on it, and I finished the first sleeve. I'm so excited. So I have, let's see if I can sort this out. I only have one sleeve and the collar left to go. And It's a 3/4 length sleeve. The sweater is Venetian Dream by Josee Paquin. The yarn I'm using is, I hope I have the label kicking around. I do. Manos del Uruguay, Alegria. It's a superwash merino. It's a fingering weight. This is in Rambla Sur colorway. It is beautiful. I love it. I bought this when I was up visiting my mom in Maine last year. And I named it my Memoir sweater because of all the memories attached to it. And it just reminds me, the colorway reminds me of being on the coast in Maine. In the spring, summer, the lupin and the ocean, and it's just beautiful. So here's the sweater. See if I can get it kind of in the shot. It has an interesting lower V-neck with a rounded collar otherwise. It has a 3/4 sleeve. It has a split hem at the bottom with lace in the front and back panels. The split is it's a nice long split to enable you to sit down, and the split top is landing right at my hip bone, perfect. So it's very comfortable and it looks good whether you're sitting, standing, walking, whatever's going on. It's a 3/4 length sleeve, and that's where I got nervous because I got big long monkey arms. I was graced with monkey arms. And 3/4 length sleeves on me generally in commercial clothing fall just a little bit short and they get uncomfortable. They're in a weird place on me. They're uncomfortable and I always end up either pushing them up or trying to pull them down, and not good. So my thought on this was that I may want to lengthen the sleeve or I may want to shorten the sleeve, and I wasn't really sure where that was going to land. So I did the reduction on the sleeve, reducing down as instructed, got to the lace, and I knit the lace repeats as instructed. But before I put on the edge garter, I tried it on. I love it. I love it. It fits really nice. I had sized up against, I had knit one of Josee's patterns before, and this time I sized up one size because the first one, although it fit well, it was just a little bit more negative ease than I wanted, I think. And this one, I wanted it to be a little bit looser, a little bit more casual. I've also lost a couple pounds. So it's perfect. It's right where I want it to be. And my interpretation of the decreases in the sleeve. Let me pull the pattern. The pattern is written open to interpretation. It says, work decrease round every X number of rows, a total of X number of times. Whenever I see work decrease round every X number of rounds, I get a little confused. Let's call it 9. I'm supposed to work the decrease round every 9 rounds. Okay. Does that mean knit 9 rounds and then do the decrease? Or does that mean in 9 rounds, the 9th round is the decrease round? I think I overthink these things, but I don't think I'm alone in that. Work decrease round every 9 rounds. So I work 9 and then I do 1, that's 10 rounds, or I work 8 and then I work it as the 9th round. And then I'm going to do this, let's call it 10 times. Okay, so if I work it, if her instruction was to do it as the 10th row, and I'm working it 10 times, and I do it as the 9th round, then I'm actually shorting myself 90 rows. I'm shorting myself like 10 rows. I see the math. And this is why it goes wrong. Or I'm actually, if I interpret it one way, it makes it shorter, if that's not what she meant. And if I interpret it the other way, it'll make it longer, if that's not what she meant. Reach out to your pattern designers. If you do not understand, we will always explain to you. I opted to go for the math. If in fact she meant it the opposite way, mine would be longer. I did that intentionally so that either it's dead on what she meant because we're both in agreement with what that statement means, or mine would be longer. And at that point I could do one extra rep of the lace and it would be that much longer to fit my monkey arms, or I already would have made up that distance and it would have been the right distance for my monkey arms. If you're following me, you're a genius. If you're not, it's okay, I'm crazy. Either way, I tried it on. The sleeve is landing exactly where I want it to, and I've put notes right on my pattern that says what I interpreted it as, so that when I knit the second sleeve, my sleeves will match. Novel idea. Yes, I've had sweaters where the sleeves ended up different. Make notes on your patterns. Print your patterns, make notes on your patterns. Sticky notes, hard notes, whatever you want. Check boxes, do it. Especially when you're trying to replicate stuff. Even just with a pair of socks. You may think you know what you're doing and that you're going to remember it on the second sock, and then life will knock you sideways and you're not going to remember, and you're going to be in that position where you're halfway through the sock and you're going to look at it and go, what did I do last time? And you're going to be staring and counting at minuscule things on the first sock trying to figure it out. I do it all the time. Make notes. Make notes. Take time to write to your future self. And take time to put a happy little note in there too, like, silly, you thought you were going to remember this, so I wrote it down for you. Your future self will thank you. Your future self will be a lot less stressed about it. So, what does this mean? This means that I have survived the wilds of sorting out what I wanted to do to create the first sleeve. It is exactly what I want. I have my notes for it, and it's only this much distance. I can knock that out this week. I can do this. And then all I have left is the collar, and I'll be wearing this on my trip. Thank you. This is what I wanted. This was my whole hope, was to get this done in time for fall of this year and to be able to wear it. And it's well within grasp. This is something I can do. This is something I can handle. I'm going to do this. And I so hope that next weekend when I sit down to podcast, I'm going, do you see what I'm wearing? As I'm going to have to block it too. So if I'm wearing it in the next podcast, it will be unblocked and it'll be looking rough, but it will be a proud moment. We're going to aim. We're going to see what we can do. So this, I'm actually carrying a sweater with me as my travel knitting, which I don't normally carry bigger projects like this with me. I usually keep my commute knitting to really small things like socks. But I want this done so badly that I'm hauling around my favorite extra big project bag. I love this bag. I'm going to show this bag off again. You guys have seen it before. Let me tuck all of my stuff away. Make sure you have your pattern and your needle secured in your project bag because you will miss them later. I love this project bag. This bag came from Knitting with Attitude. It is my Star Trek bag. I love this thing. It's huge. It's huge. It's as wide as my shoulders. My sweater falls into that and I have room to mess around, dig around, and find what I need. It has one big pocket on one side. It has two pockets on the other. It has a nice zip that extends beyond the end of the bag so you can open that bag all the way. It has a nice handle on it so I can lug this around at work. It is fantastic. It's beautifully lined. I'm not gonna, well, yeah, I'm gonna show you. Here's all my junk shoved in this bag. I have all my stuff. I have pens in here. I have an extra notebook in here to write notes to my future self. I have my needles in here. I have my little zip of notions with extra. See, I have little tiny balls of yarn in there. You never know when you're going to need waste yarn in a contrast color. Little tiny ball of yarn, brilliant. Folding scissors, a little nail file. These are the cutest things in the world. Let's see if I can pull this out. Just tiny little nail file. This is one of those notions that you find. You never have a nail file when you need it when you're knitting. You're always having to put your stuff aside because you're snagging and go find a nail file. Put it right in your notions. My weaving needle, my stitch markers, another cutter. I have one clear pouch. I love this thing. And my pattern and my balls of yarn and my sweater. It's all in here. And I love this bag. Knitting with Attitude, she has a shop. Go over and check it. I'm pretty sure I'm probably going to screw this up. I think it's knittingwithattitude.com, but I will post the link below. And my friend Donna is over there, and her stuff is great. I love it. Go check her out. What else is going on? That's all my knitting. That's all my knitting. Yeah, Coffee Bar has kind of been set aside just because that one's going to take a little bit more thought process to edit through. And I want to get that sweater done. I want to get that sweater done. We had a design along. What fun that was. We got some really beautiful entries. Please pop over to the voting thread. The link is down below for you. Voting is open until September 14th. You do not have to be a participant of the design along to vote for the winners of the prizes. We're going to have 3 prizes. We're going to have the voted favorite, we're going to have the voted most knittable, and we're going to have a random drawing. And I am ridiculously excited to get prizes out to people. We really had some beautiful, beautiful designs get entered in, and every one of them is a winner, regardless of whether they get a prize. Please go give them some love. We have our Knit Together community mixer actively going on. I sent out emails this morning to alert you that it's time to go and purchase your yarn so that you can get your partner's name and contact information and make your new knitting friend. We will be doing this again late winter, probably January, maybe February, so you have another opportunity to get in. These are open worldwide, and it's really just an opportunity to meet somebody that you have something in common with. You each get to pick out a skein of yarn, and whoever gets the match pair of the skein of yarn that you chose, you guys get to exchange information and become knit buddies. Those emails, like I said, did go out, and the shop yarns are loaded, so you can go and pick out your favorite skein, and I'll send you off your information just as soon as both partners have purchased, and we'll get you guys together. The Ornament Exchange, that is in process. So we have, the registration has closed on that. This year it's only open to the US. If you're just finding out about the Ornament Exchange now and you're interested in doing it, if you are in the US, there is a $7 participation fee. Contact me. I'm willing to add you to the cycle. More the merrier, absolutely. And initially I thought we were going to need to close off the registration. I'm questioning now if I'm not just going to leave the registration open, and if you can manage to make 6 ornaments in time for shipping, great, let's do that. I don't have the ship date on here, but I do have people who have sent me ornaments already. That blows my mind because I don't have my ornaments ready. Like I said, I have my trunk show coming up that is going to involve flying. That's a lot of nice focused knit time. My sweater is going to be done. I'll probably be wearing it, so I won't be knitting my sweater on the plane. I think I'm going to knit my ornaments on the plane. And I've picked a pattern. I've chosen a pattern that I really like. It looks good. I'm excited about it. There's a couple challenges for me in this pattern, and one of them is I need to learn a new cast on. I've been practicing the cast on a little bit this week. I'm a little nervous about it. I think I need to knit one as a sample and as kind of a study to see if I understand it and I learn it and figure out how to tweak my cast on to make sure that it's doing what I want. Ultimately, it has me casting on in the middle of the project and then working out in 2 different directions. And to do that, you need to have a 2-sided cast on. There's a couple of different ways to do that. I played with one and it was a loose, sloppy mess, and I was very unhappy with it. And I knew that I could practice that for the rest of my life and not be happy with it. It's the same challenge I face when I try to double knit. When I try to do double knitting, which is knitting a 2-face fabric, my cast on is the most frustrating part. And I end up with all this loosey-goosey mess. If I knit something that's going to be worked back and forth, that loosey-goosey mess can get dropped off the end and unraveled and woven in. I just have to cast on extra and knit what I need. If I'm knitting something in the round, I can't hide that loosey-goosey mess quite the same way, and so I have been avoiding double knits. This is one of those knitter's challenges where I have two options. I can simply never knit a double knit project and give in to what I consider my failing, or I can look at it and ask around and learn other techniques to work around this, or learn ways to tweak the technique to make it work for me. For example, we all know and love the Kitchener stitch, but some of us, when we work the Kitchener stitch across the toe of a sock, we get donkey ears on either end, those funny knobby corners. And by tweaking that technique and doing a decrease on each side, we can pull those in. Tweaking a technique and making it your own can resolve these problems. I'm working on that. So anyway, I'm learning this new cast on. Once I've got it down, I'm going to share it with you, and I'm going to share what I've learned about it and the tips and tricks to make it work. But I'm not ready yet. If this works, if I can knit this sample and I can tweak this all out and get this to work, then I'm going to take that project with me on flight and I'm going to knock out my ornaments. And I'm really excited about that. I think that'll be a nice project to focus on. I'm a little concerned that I'm going to frustrate myself again and not have the time to adhere to tweaking that technique to make it my own and make it work. Or that I'm not going to master it in time and I'm going to be frustrated with it and I'm going to need a different project to travel with, because I do not want to travel with a project that is going to make me stab my fellow flyers. The U.S. Marshals don't like angry knitters. So that is something that I need to work on this week as well. I'm going to give it a couple brief shots. I'm not going to make it my commute knitting because I want to make that sweater. I want to make that sweater. The sweater is everything. The sweater is my natural focus this time. Trunk show. My trunk show is coming up. If you're thinking about coming out to Unwound to see me, I'm going to be there September 20th through the 23rd. I'm teaching a class. I'm writing up the materials for that class this afternoon. I did a nice test dye. We're going to be dyeing sock blanks. And we're going to be looking at a bunch of different techniques. We're going to look at how to make it self-striping, how to make it fade, how to do stenciling on it. We're going to have all kinds of fun. And if you have the opportunity to come out and meet me, please do. I would love to meet you. Again, I will be there the 20th through the 23rd. The class is actually on the 23rd. We also have a brunch on the 23rd where you get to come hang out and have breakfast with me. I would love to have you there. I am ridiculously excited about this. I'm looking past the camera at my studio, which this is all nice and neat and professional looking, mostly. The rest of my studio looks like perhaps we had a 8.5 on the Richter scale earthquake, or it might have been a landslide and a hurricane, and there's a volcano in the back corner. It's pretty crazy in here right now, and amongst all this chaos, I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier because all of this is, it's like fireworks. There's fun in a box and we're going to go and set it off and we're going to have a great time. I'm very excited about that. What else is going on? I think that's enough. I think that's enough. If you have suggestions, if you have ideas about what you'd like to see here in the future, please write to me. I would love to hear from you. We're going to get back to demonstrations as soon as I'm home from the trunk show. I have a couple dye demonstrations coming up, and I have a couple knitting demonstrations coming up, as well as some exclusive videos for the Patreon page. I'm creating some forms for the Patreon page that are going to get uploaded in the very near future. If you're a Patreon member, you're going to have exclusive access to this. If you don't know what I'm talking about and you're saying, how do I get exclusive access? Please pop on over to my Patreon page. For as little as $1 a month, you get access to all the exclusive content as it builds up. For even 1 month, if you decide to pop in for 1 month for $1, you get everything that's already up there. And you have the opportunity to get yarn and free patterns and all kinds of other stuff as benefits for supporting me. That's everything I have for you guys this week. It's a little bit shorter episode because I'm just overloaded. I did tell you that I have been in an emotional, not great place still as a result of my very, very minor car accident. I'm fine. I'm not in a C-collar. Nothing's broken. Everything is fine. I did have some minor emotional garbage attached to this, and I have sought help, got help, and I am in a much better place. I dare say I'm better than I was before the accident. Sometimes you just got to take a knock to the head, right? It's all good. I'm great, and thank everybody, all of you, for the love and support that you've extended me. I appreciate every message that you've sent. It means the world to me, and I love you guys. I'll be in touch soon. We'll have an episode next week. I'm going to finish that sweater. Mwah! Bye, guys.